SCW Rewind returns once again with a show you voted for, ladies and gentlemen. It is WWE Night of Champions 2015, the review. At the time of recording, for those watching later in life, this is just one short week away from Night of Champions 2023, where Seth Rollins will be challenging for the World Heavyweight Championship. On this show, he competes twice. It's 2 matches versus 2 legends. Can he walk away remaining United States champion and WWE champion? And of course, Sting is in the WWE Championship match. Of course, it's his final match with the company as well. Of course, he only ever had 2 in the company. And of course, today, speaking of 2, there'll be 2 of us talking about this show. And as it's Night of Champions, I get a rare excuse to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, SCW proudly brings to you its tag team champions of the world, SCW Steve, NXSteve. This is SCW Rewind. NXSteve, how you doing, my friend? Welcome to the stream. How are you doing?
What an intro, man. Jesus, man. I was like, I literally watched a video with him too earlier. So I was like, oh, man, I like it, man. I like it a lot. But I'm good, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very attitude era what we're doing today, but I must admit, I've seen a little bit of New Age Outlaws recently as well. That kind of got me into the mindset. But no, I'm doing very well, thank you indeed. Looking forward to discussing this show. Obviously, we've got some big matches to discuss, 5 championship matches in total. What were your initial thoughts then when you were told about Night of Champions 2015, that this was the show everybody voted for?
If you look at the card, you should be really excited for this because it is stacked. It's like there's so much talent on it. And then you watch it and then you walk away going, what was that? What did I just put myself through for 2 hours and 45 minutes? But yeah, it was okay in places. It was bad in others. It's what you expect for a mid-teens WWE pay-per-view, I suppose.
It's a mixed bag. I will agree with that. It is a mixed bag of a show, but I've got to say that I think I may have a slightly, I don't know, maybe higher bar going into this review of what I thought of it. There were some bits I definitely really enjoyed about this show and looking forward to diving into it. Just before we go into it, though, let's just quickly get your take. What was your favourite match of the card? I think I've got a good idea what it could be.
It's probably going to either be the 6-man tag. What was before the 6-man tag? Because I got my brain and I can't think of the lineup.
We got Nikki Bella versus Charlotte Flair was the match before that.
Do you know what? I'm going to say the 6-man tag or the actual Nikki Bella Charlotte match, and that's a shocker for me because we'll get into it when we get to it.
Absolutely. Well, I must admit, for me, my standout match of this show was John Cena versus Seth Rollins. For me, that was my favourite match of the card there. But looking forward to that. It was a good match indeed, but I like the 2 matches you've mentioned as well there. We've got plenty to say to discuss 5 championship matches, but it did start with a kickoff match. And of course, that kickoff match was Neville and the Lucha Dragons versus the Cosmic Wasteland. Going to just quickly skim through this one for those keeping score at home, being on the kickoff show. Cody Rhodes was having or Stardust, I should say. Then it was Stardust having a feud with Neville. That carried over from a tag team match from SummerSlam where Stephen Amell was involved. Felt very Marvel-esque at the time. Of course, Stardust getting the Ascension to back him up at the time to take on Neville, to take out Neville. This led then to the Lucha Dragons making the save on Raw going into this show. And obviously, when you go into the match itself between the 2 teams, a pretty standard tag team match, kind of what you would expect, really. It was a high-flying style of Neville and the Lucha Brothers, or should I say the Lucha Dragons. Easy. I knew I'd do that on this stream. Against the power of the Ascension and the technician that is Stardust. But I liked that there was some joint dives from the baby faces to the outside. It was a fun little spot there from Neville, and of course the Lucha Dragons going through the ropes with the suicide dives. But going to the finish of the match, we see that Cody Rhodes, or Stardust, was going for the disaster kick. That was missed by Neville. Then Neville went to go and get himself to do the red arrow off the top rope. Actually, Stardust used Victor, pushed him into the turnbuckle, and that led to Cody hitting Crossroads, or at this time known as the Queen's Crossbow, for the victory. And just for those keeping score at home as well, this was just under 10 minutes of the kickoff at 9 minutes and 44 seconds. Now, this wasn't actually a part of the show that we put forth to everyone. So, Alex, did you get a chance to see this match at all? I know that it is briefly recapped on the actual show itself.
I honestly did not see it. I didn't realize there was a kickoff match. Do you know what? I actually like Adrian Neville / Park. I like the Lucha Dragons. And Cody of Stardust isn't bad. Not too sure on what were the other 2 called.
Connor and Victor of the Ascension.
The Ascension, that's it. Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of them, but I would have given it a watch for the sake of 10 minutes. But no, honestly, mate, didn't even realize it was on the card. Didn't even realize there was a kickoff show match.
No, I mean, to be fair, it's just a standard tag team match there to kick off. You know what it's like back in that point. It was an okay match, fine match to watch if you've got time to take out to go and see it. But I mean, there's not even a Dave Meltzer star rating for this one for me. I would give it a 2-star just because of the fact it's there. Nothing groundbreaking happens on here. But the only thing that I just look at it and say that screams to me today, looking from back then, we see the Stardust gimmick, and Cody obviously puts his passion and dedication no matter what the gimmick is. You could see that there. But goodness, it's about, 8-9 months before Cody leaves to bet on himself to become the American Nightmare outside of WWE. Thank goodness he did that, because obviously changed his career, changed his life, changed the wrestling industry, obviously, with AEW being created as well, coming back to WWE, and of course having the unbelievable run he's had over the last 18 months or so, despite a mega injury as well that took him out for half of that time. But yeah, all in all, I think that I would say for people, it's worth going checking out, but it's nothing groundbreaking. But we'll go into what is the main show then, and I'll give you all the details that lead to that as well, because this was at the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. The show took place on the 20th of September in 2015. For those looking for the attendance, 14,369 were in the building, and the buy rate is 77,000, but that is excluding the WWE Network views. The WWE Network is a part at this point, so buy rate, let's be fair, doesn't really count the same way anymore. The commentary team is Michael Cole, JBL, and Jerry Lawler. And at least my first question of the night, then properly for you, NXSteve, what were your thoughts of the commentary team?
It's a pretty standard WWE team for the mid-teens. Jerry's trying to be kind of heel / face dynamic. Heel / face / color commentator. It inadvertently changes between him and JBL throughout the night. Michael Cole is Michael Cole. It's not the most exciting commentary team. It's just a pretty bang average commentary team, really. But they did all right. They're entertaining as they usually are, especially Jerry Lawler with his little one-liners that he throw in every once in a while.
Absolutely. And of course, you always get JBL going, Michael, every sort of sentence he says as well there, which always can have its entertaining moments. But we go then into the main video package for the main show. And of course, the Night Champions is about the champions, but they also highlight that this is a night about the challengers. It's all about opportunity, change, and resurgence. We see the likes of John Cena featured, Kevin Owens, Charlotte Flair, and the Dudley Boyz. We move on though to the main story of the night, which of course is Seth Rollins. Weird enough, in the video package, he calls himself Seth freaking Rollins, which I found kind of interesting, seeing how his character is today. We hear about how he wants to tear away the legend that is Sting, and says that he already broke the nose of John Cena at SummerSlam. Hasn't he had enough already? Of course, Seth Rollins being the WWE champion and the United States champion, built as 2 matches versus 2 legends. And of course, this show has every championship on the line. So what are your thoughts on that opening video package? What did you think of it?
Do you know what? I'm glad that they actually went with the whole precipice of that every championship is on the line, because it made an interesting dynamic, especially for Seth, who was 2-belt champ at the time. So how that was going to play out. My only irritating part is that he's fighting John Cena for the US title. So I suppose it's hindsight now that we now look back at it and go, do you know what? If you'd have told me, if I'd have judged it now how I think, I would have said to you, right, well, he's definitely going to... Excuse me, that's an alarm.
It's the Royal Rumble.
He's definitely going to lose. Like, if I looked at it now, I would definitely... My money would have been on for a bet that he's going to lose to Cena, lose the US title, and beat Sting. But then back in 2015, when I sat there and first watched this, I went, he's guaranteed to lose at least one of them. And I would like to have thought they'd have done a little bit more with Sting's creative, because let's be honest, in this whole run in WWE, he had 4 matches, and his only win is over the Big Show via DQ. I think that's an absolute disgrace on how they used him in his time in WWE. So, like I said, it was criminal, man, what they've done to Sting in his run for WWE.
Absolutely. And we're going to be talking, that's going to be like the headline topic at the end of this video. We're going to take about 5 or 10 minutes to discuss Sting, what could have been, what might have been. Was this the right move? Was this the wrong move? So plenty of reasons to stick around for that at the end of the video. But we mentioned Seth Rollins, 2 matches in one show. C-Nation Dog in the house, bringing in those facts as he always likes to do. Thank you, C-Nation, for doing so. Hope you're keeping well on this Sunday. He says, fun fact, this isn't the only time Seth Rollins defended 2 titles in the same night. He's also done this at 2019's Clash of Champions, defending the Universal title against Braun Strowman and defending the Raw Tag Team titles against Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. Fun little
Was he
fact there.
tagging with Jason Jordan as well at that point? I think that was that point, wasn't it? I don't know
Would it
who's.
have been?
I'm going to have a guess and say his tag team partner was Jason Jordan. I think
Either that or Dean Ambrose. It depends on which one it would have been, but
yeah, maybe
could have been.
because
See,
I know
they
him
should
and Jason
clarify for
Jordan
that.
would tag parts. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Because to be fair, we've actually done the research for 2015, not for 2019. So C Nation, give us a hand on that one for us, if you don't mind, my good friend. But he says when people say Sting only lost 2 big matches in WWE, but he also had 1 singles match against the Big Show and the tag team with John Cena. So there you go as well there. And apparently, Rollins' tag team partner was Braun Strowman on the night for you there in 2019. So we'll give you all the rewind stuff here today, ladies and gentlemen. You can know about every show in Night of Champions and Clash of Champions history. But one thing's for sure, we need to kick off with an opener of this show, and obviously it started with a championship match, as Night of Champions should, with the Intercontinental Championship. Ryback defending against Kevin Owens. Now, to give a little bit of just detail of this match before I get your opinion on it, Steve, KO immediately targets that left arm shoulder of Ryback using the ring post and also the ring rope to get that initial advantage. A couple of fun spots that I liked as well, because KO was quite creative with his offense on that left arm. A Russian leg sweep with Ryback's arm being tied behind his back. Not actually tied, but just put behind his back. Another fun spot as well, KO actually doing a senton on that arm after a rest hold. But of course, in comeback fashion as they do, the babyface comes back in Ryback, goes for a shell shock, but his arm gives way. KO throws Ryback into the ring post, uses a Fujiwara armbar, which Ryback then does power out of, which does look quite impressive, sort of slams KO to the ground. Ryback attempts a shell shock for a second time, but with the referee not looking, and obviously with the other side, KO manages to rake the eyes and then actually goes for a roll up with a schoolboy. This is the second schoolboy attempt that KO has gone for, and this time he gets the pinfall and becomes the Intercontinental Champion. What were your thoughts with this opener we had then with Ryback and Kevin Owens?
It's a shocker to see how over Ryback was in 2015. The fact that like the crowd was so behind him, and yet after he left WWE, everyone just kind of raps on the guy. And you could this was a really good showing of what WWE small children fans were cheering for, what wrestling fans were cheering for. It was such a unique dynamic to sit there and watch. The match itself, it's probably the best you're going to get out of a Ryback match. Let's be honest, he wasn't the greatest in-ring professional wrestler, but if I'm correct, I think this was KO's first. It wasn't his first title since coming up to main roster fully after losing the NXT Championship.
It was, yes. So KO initially came up with, didn't he, with John Cena, if he was still NXT champion. He lost the title at Beast in the East. And of course, then that was, I believe, was in July time. And then obviously, first opportunity here at the IC title at Night of Champions and wins the title from Ryback. So this is KO with the first proper main roster title. And of course, he would go on then to become Universal Champion 12 months later when the brand split would come in. But amazing for KO. I would agree with you, by the way. Definitely the best Ryback match I've seen. I love the creative offense from Kevin Owens. He really felt like a breath of fresh air around this time being brought to the main roster.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows the levels that KO was dealing at. The fact that he'd only been in NXT for 6 months before he was, before I think he was in NXT for 6 months before he got called up to main roster.
True.
That's how good he was. Like he joined, he won the NXT Championship from Sammy, I believe it was. He then goes on to have a great debut run with John Cena, where they feud over the United States Championship and the NXT Championships there. And then to have him go up to the main roster, win the IC title in his first shot. I don't think you could ask for a better NXT debut. I mean, it's got to be probably one of the best ones you've ever seen. Yeah,
absolutely. And KO, I mean, has been someone that's been one of the mainstays ever since. And of course, has main evented in the last 2 WrestleManias on night 1. So it's been a good run for Kevin Owens. Nation clarifying, by the way, that this was Kevin Owens' first main roster title. And also, there's another true fact here as well. I was going to go on to say it as well. This was Ryback only title in WWE. I mean, obviously, Ryback never winning the big one there.
I honestly didn't remember Ryback winning the title. So when this match card come up, I went, oh, well, I know Ryback's losing. But then to see him walk out with the title, I was like, hey, wait a minute. Ryback actually won something? No, this isn't right.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is as well, Ryback officially won this match in Elimination Chamber 2015, which is the worst Elimination Chamber match of all time, ladies and gentlemen. Do not vote me to review that, please, unless we're doing a really bad show. C Nation goes on to say that Kevin Owens almost won every title in WWE. He's just missing the WWE title, very true, and now the World Heavyweight title, which I do not sadly see him winning either, just being a challenger, says C Nation. We'll have to wait and see in the future if that will be. But just to go quickly on the details then of the conclusion of this match. This match went on for 9 minutes and 32 seconds. And of course, we do bring in those star ratings because Big Dave is popular amongst this wrestling community. So it's only fair to give Dave Meltzer star ratings. Dave gave this 2.5 star, which I must admit, I think is quite a fair rating for this opener for me. I actually say that Kevin Owens for me is the shining light of the reason why this got to 2.5 stars. Like you say, I don't think Ryback is the greatest in-ring performer ever, but certainly for me, I thought this was an enjoyable enough opener with the right result.
Yeah, like I said, it is what it was. It was what the best that you're going to get out of Ryback for Kevin Owens. Like the fact that he won the title out of it, I suppose, is a major plus. I think I probably would say 2, and that's only purely because of Kevin. I think the rest of it, I think Ryback just seriously, he's obviously the weakest link in this dynamic. So, like I said, I think it was just a great time to move the title on, and then I can't imagine Ryback was in the company long before he left after that.
I don't think it was much longer afterwards. No, maybe 12 months or so at most there. But like you say, definitely the week league, including the referee. Yeah, poor Ryback. But we'll move on in the meantime anyway there. And just to say, C Nation has said that we'll vote for us to review Elimination Chamber 2015. Look out February 2024. Yeah, absolutely. We may not get away with that one. We'll have to wait and see. But one thing that certainly we won't get away with discussing next is Dolph Ziggler versus Rusev with Summer Rae in his corner. For those who remember back to the summer of 2015, I love that your heads are in your hands. We're not even started on this one yet. It's a good old fashioned love story. What was it? The love square that was going on because, of course, Rusev had Lana, then Mrs. Mysterio, Dolph Ziggler stole Lana away. I think Dolph had something on with Summer Rae as well. Summer Rae ends up going with Rusev, and just the sort of details that we were given about this before going into the match was that if it was to do with Monday Night Raw, we see Dolph Ziggler leaving a gift for Summer Rae at ringside. Rusev was distracted by this, which then cost him a match against Cesaro. Of course, Summer Rae consoling Rusev after the match, but of course, curiosity always gets to the better end of the day. She takes the gift with her, despite the fact that Rusev's upset about this. When she's left outside the locker room, she checks out what the gift is, sees it's very expensive earrings. We get to SmackDown. Summer confronts Dolph Ziggler about the gift and Dolph says, look, it's just a peace offering, nothing more. Summer says, well, that's a pretty expensive peace offering. Dolph replies and says, sometimes it's just a peace offering, and sometimes it's more. You cheeky devil, Dolph. You cheeky devil. What a player. Backstage, Rusev then, of course, is upset. He says he wants to take out Dolph Ziggler to whoever's announcing him at the time. I know that it was an NXT guy that was doing the backstage interviewing on the time. I didn't actually get to check his name on the evening. Lana apparently was at home with a broken wrist at this point. And Summer was asked if she was wearing Dolph Ziggler's earrings. She looked stunned, of course, giving away that she was, and then walked away. What were your thoughts with the build of this match? And obviously, just that other little detail, just before we go actually into the match itself, this whole storyline got ruined at the end of the day because Rusev and Lana announced they got engaged in real life on TMZ.
It got leaked on TMZ that they got engaged in real life. They got leaked. That was the whole reason this whole got ruined. Yeah,
it was hot until then.
Even without the TMZ thing, it's still a horrible storyline. Like, I almost felt sorry for Dolph at this point because it's like, all right, yeah, we get it. You're a great worker and you're putting these matches to make people look good. Like, don't get me wrong, the match is okay. It's everything else around it that absolutely sucks. Like, Summer Rae is not the most convincing person. Like, after time the camera would pan to her, you can see her looking out the corner of her eye at the camera. And I'm like, what are you doing? It was honestly... It was a terrible storyline, and if anything, I think the TMZ story actually saved this, and it just ended it because I can imagine Vince would have dragged this out for another 6 months.
There's a possibility, knowing back in the day what that would have been like. I must admit, it wasn't my favourite storyline either, though. I do remember people being quite into it at the time. But we'll quickly go into the detail of the match, of course. And Rusev obviously getting the better of Dolph into this with a lot of the match there. And we started hearing Lana chants eventually, which we see Rusev covering his ears. Must have been a theme around the time, which gave Dolph the chance to make the comeback into there. There was a fun spot, actually, though. Dolph is on Rusev's back, and of course, he gets thrown off and then actually gets hit with a Muchka kick. I thought that was actually not a bad-looking spot. Rusev thinks he wins, but he wastes time to get to the accolade, which is then countered into a super kick. We see Rusev kick out. Summer Rae gets onto the apron. Of course, she can't help herself but get into the match. Like I say, she had a corner of where the camera was and when she needed to get her cue. She goes onto there, and of course, she sees Dolph Ziggler thrown into the rope, which sees Summer land into the ring. The ref kind of wants to send her back to the locker room for getting involved in the match. She gets annoyed, takes off her shoe, throws one at the referee, but instead misses the referee, hits Rusev, and that leads to Dolph Ziggler hitting that zigzag for the win. And then we just see Summer Rae kind of like being shocked on the floor as Ziggler walks away to the back there with a victory. Like you say, this actually got quite a good crowd reaction, to be fair, on the night. But I must admit, looking back at this now, I didn't feel that good looking watching it now.
Honestly, like I said, the match itself was fine. It's just everything else about this. Because as soon as I saw Summer Rae, and I went, "Oh my god, I know exactly what this is. I know the exact weird love square that's going on with this whole dynamic." And then you've got Dolph wearing. Is he got Lana's face or has he got Summer Rae's face on his trousers? I can't even remember. It was on the crotch area somewhere. There was a blonde-haired woman's face supposedly on his trousers, and I was like, I don't know who that's supposed to be. It was just a whole weird dynamic. And like I said, I think the TMZ story it spared us another 6 months of some bad creative for this. But then, do you know what? I'll tell you what was fun to see is actually how much these people have changed in 8 years. Because if you look at Miro now, the guy's super jacked, man, and like obviously he was just a big hunking guy, and this is obviously he's wearing shoes at this point as well. This is post barefoot wrestling Rusev, but I think that's one of the pluses I can take is just to see that how these people have evolved in 8 years. Because aside from that, there's nothing else good about it.
Unfortunately, I think you could be right there. I mean, obviously, Rusev does go on to do better things in WWE. Rusev Day, of course. This is only like 6 months after he was in a tank at WrestleMania, by the way. Like, how he can fall from grace. He was undefeated to that point as well there. Dolph Ziggler, like you said, we're starting to get to the point where it's poor Dolph. He had like a good push going into the end of 2014. Obviously, the Survivor Series sole survivor. Had the great ladder match with Luke Harper, of course. And then obviously going to 2015, just kind of the wheels start to fall off around this point. And this is around the period I start to give up in Dolph Ziggler as a main event talent, actually, because I was a big Dolph Ziggler fan around this time period. But I mean, going into the details then of how this match concludes, obviously, this match is 13 minutes and 47 seconds. For me, I think it's far too long. Dave Meltzer gives this, a 3-star rating. For me, I think that's really generous when you compare it to the opener. For me, I understand that this was probably a hot angle at the time, but for me, I don't know. I just wasn't connected in the same way. I'm going to give it so much of a rating.
I presume he's done that purely for the wrestling in the match because the story is diabolical. So I believe he's giving that 3 stars just to be generous for what Dolph and Rusev do in the ring. Because he is a shocker.
Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, like you said, in ring action, that these two can go in the ring, but at the same time, I just look at it and say that for me, this just isn't it. And I've got to give a rating based on all levels. That you said, the story, the narrative, the way everyone includes in it. For me, this is like a 1.5 for me. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but yeah, it's not for me. This one,
it's not great.
No, but I tell you what is great. Our chat are really great because we've got a lot of activity going on. So let's go in and see what everyone's got to say. And what I love as well, very quickly, C Nation says, this video was so bad, you can just skip this match. Well, thankfully, C Nation is still with us. He has put some more comments in, thankfully. But also clarifying that Ryback left after Payback 2016. So there we go. We've got some fact-checking going on here from C Nation. So appreciate that indeed. And apparently, we take this as gospel, but Rusev was supposed to actually win the Intercontinental Championship before the TMZ thing happened. Interesting. Was not aware of that inside source information there. So interesting if that would have happened. Obviously, Rusev versus Kevin Owens would have been an interesting match to have seen as well around that time period as well.
It was that whole period where, just unfortunately for Rusev, where he managed to get himself naturally over a la Daniel Bryan style with the crowd. But Vince just won't have none of it. It was a case of you can't become a big star unless I make you a big star. And he suffered for it, unfortunately, because that whole Rusev day should have propelled him to absolute levels. He should have been a main eventer at that point.
I mean, to be fair, that's what we were hoping to see, but it just didn't connect, and it just feels like getting that superstar to that next level after the John Cena feud didn't happen, and just sad to see how far it dropped. Tino in house as well, and of course he's going to go live very shortly. Tino's always live. It's always Tino's time, ladies and gentlemen, no matter where you are in the world. And hope you're doing well, Tino. Thank you for checking in. So he's got a surprise as well about this pay-per-view. So I mean, he'll probably be giving that on his channel at some point, since this is one of his favorite Night of Champions shows, which is good to hear as well. C Nation says Dolph Ziggler deserves more respect. He's always putting over new talent. He's about to put over JJ McDonough right now. Hey, to be fair, Dolph Ziggler is a great in-ring talent. I think for me, the reason why I gave up with him from around this point onwards was because of the fact that I always felt he was going to get to the top, and it felt like he got to the top, and then this is where he starts sliding away. Obviously, his in-ring talent, never take it away from him, but for me, it just wasn't believable anymore.
It was for me. It was for when he did that. What was that promo he did? He got in the ring and he started crying, and it was almost like, you remember Christian Cage used to be like, one more match. I just need one more match. It was like a seriously worse version of that. And he starts crying and getting upset. And I'm like, Dolph, why are they making you do this, man? Because I'm pretty sure there was rumors at the time about him leaving because he's a stand-up comedian as well or something. And he was doing stand-up tours and something. And I think that he was prepared to leave and go and do all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, it'd be better than watching you be painstakingly go through all this absolutely terrible creative.
Absolutely. And just to say, by the way, of like why I say I give up Dolph Ziggler with this sort of area, because he got that push at Survivor Series being the sole survivor at 2014. Here's what C Nation says. Fun fact, Roman Reigns was supposed to be the sole survivor, but got injured, so Dolph Ziggler took his place. So it's probably meant to be Roman in that spot against the Authority there. So that sort of proves it there, C Nation. He got that push simply because, well, he was the guy that filled in. It's great he got that position, but WWE had done this for him for a good couple of years at this point, where it looked like he was going to get there after winning the world title. It just didn't stay. Eric Douglas asking, was this Sting's debut pay-per-view for WWE? No, his first one was Survivor Series 2014, where he helped Dolph Ziggler become the sole survivor, ending the Authority sort of power at that point.
His last pay-per-view appearance.
Yeah, this is his last pay-per-view appearance, this one here, but his in-ring pay-per-view for WWE would have been WrestleMania 31. If you're going to ask which one it was in WCW and NWA, that will involve some research, but it certainly goes back to the 80s because Sting's been going for quite a while. Last then comment will go on before we move on to different matches. C Nation says that WWE tried to recycle this storyline with Bobby Lashley and Rusev, with Bobby Lashley being Lana. This storyline seems to never work. But to be fair though, I actually think I enjoyed the Bobby and Rusev and Lana storyline more than I enjoyed this one.
I think I did, just because it was so corny. I think, wasn't there, it got to the point where Bobby just got so annoyed with Lana, wasn't it, at the end of it all, because she just kept complaining about everything, and I was like, it's almost foreshadowing. Like, you just don't understand why Vince insists on going with these terrible storylines, because they just don't work.
Absolutely. Of course, who remembers the wedding where Liv Morgan comes out? It was like there with the
she's a lesbian with she's a lesbian with Lana. Oh my god! What?
Absolutely. Was it Rusev? Rusev or Liv Morgan that came out the cake? It's one of the two, and then obviously taking place in it as well. But I think
it was Liv.
It was Liv, yeah. So there, Fun times. And of course, then Bobby broke up with Lana to be with MVP, and he lived happily ever after, becoming a 2-time WWE champion. And that's what we like to see. Das Reynolds in the house says, what was Sting's 2 WWE pay-per-views? But this was obviously his last one. His other one was WrestleMania 31. Of course, that's where he competed. He, of course, was a partner with the Survivor Series 2014, as we mentioned a couple of seconds ago. But we're going to move on in the meantime. Obviously, we have quite a few more matches to go through. We did see backstage, though, obviously, Nikki Bella preparing with Team Bella ready for her match with Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair, of course, was backstage also with PCB. Of course, that was Paige, Becky, and Charlotte. Of course, Ric Flair was in the house as well. But then going on to match 3, and I must admit, I have a bit of soft spot for this one. The New Day versus the Dudley Boyz for the WWE Tag Team Championship. But before the match could even get under the way, the New Day, of course, did take the mic. And of course, he said, we've got a Dudley problem. The New Day have a campaign to save the tables. Loving this, claiming they had actually many people that signed a petition, including likes of the Authority and Barack Obama. To be fair, I know New Day were meant to be heels here, but you can see why they were turned face. They were so darn entertaining with that sort of opening segment they had for me.
Yeah, I tell you what, as soon as they come out, it all come flooding back. And I was like, I remember this because this was the whole save the table kind of dynamic angle. And I was like, and you forget how good they are. And like, you've got Xavier pulling off his best Rufio from Hook impression with that hairstyle. And it was like, you can see this is like, they still haven't found their proper flow when it comes to it all yet, because you could tell throughout the match, like when Xavier's standing on the outside, that he's still not too sure what to do with the trumpet properly. He's not being as much as involved as what he is now when it comes to matches like that. So you can see where they're going with it. I was just disappointed that, I guess it's because I'm so used to watching WWE now, and you get that piped in crowd noise, but it just felt like this match was so dead. Like, you've got one of the greatest tag teams of all time in the Dudleys. You've got one of the soon to be greatest tag teams of all time in the New Day, and the crowd just didn't seem to care about it.
They reacted a bit to the trombone, but I feel that's the obviously in the ending spot once the match is finished. But they were probably a bit calm for this match here. But obviously getting into it, just to give people the details of the match. Then obviously we had Kofi Kingston, Big E representing the New Day. Obviously it makes sense if Xavier's on the floor with the trombone. The Francesca era was awesome, but Big E getting in Bubba's face saying "Go home, old man." I thought that was quite fun. Runs into Bubba and instantly goes down. The Dudleys did have that early advantage, even pulling Xavier in the ring, which led to a distraction where Kofi managed to take advantage on Bubba. Obviously, the corner spot there, like I mentioned, with the trombone playing, I miss that back in the day where you have one of them just stomping on the other one, then they tag, the stomp will continue, the tune playing. I just thought that was quite fun. Xavier even actually did a Rocky theme at one point as well, with Kofi doing the impression in the ring. The Dudley Boys, they'll get the hot tag and hit the 3D on Kofi. Looks like they're going to get that win, but Xavier gets into the ring, breaks up the pin. That leads to the DQ. The New Day actually do a beatdown on the Dudley Boys after the match and celebrate despite losing. And then they actually do the mimic for the get the table spot. So forget save the tables. They're bringing the table in the ring. Xavier, the one, goes to get the tables. As he gloats, though, the Dudleys make the comeback. They get rid of Kofi and Big E out the ring. And of course, in classic heel fashion, as soon as Xavier turns around, he goes straight into a 3D and goes through the table. So yeah, the trombone and the table spot, definitely the most popular things of this match. I'm not going to lie though, despite the crowd not being so entertained, I was quite sports entertained watching this one.
Yeah, to me, it just felt very. The result, I think, is a very TV match. Like, it's not very often we get DQ finishes on a pay-per-view match. So, for me to see Xavier get involved, break it up, the Dudley Boys win, it was more of a kick in the teeth, really. Because if I remember correctly, I don't think the Dudley Boys won the tag team titles again since they came back to WWE. So, I think they're probably 9 or 10 time champions, and then they come back, and this whole stretch they don't win the tag team titles again. And this at this point in that year, this seemed like one of the perfect times for them to win those tag team titles. Don't get me wrong, they're the ugly ones with the look like penny farthings, absolute shambles championship titles. But yeah, it just felt like a TV finish, and I think that's what really soured it for me.
Yeah, it's the finish that lets this match down. And like you said, perhaps it felt like this, if there was going to be a moment the title should have changed hands and gone to the Dudleys, this was it, because obviously the New Day could have won them back afterwards and could have gone and continued to do the longest reign that they would have done. But at the same time, I do like the sports element that was brought into it. And I do like that the Dudley Boys did have a fantastic feud with the Wyatt family at the end of the year. Do you remember Team Extreme? I think it was Tommy Dreamer and stuff getting involved as well with that. But obviously, it is what it is with this match. But going into the ratings, obviously, it's nearly a 10-minute match again, 9 minutes and 57 seconds. Big Dave gives this a 2 3/4 star rating. I'm going to say that's a fair, accurate rating, because I don't think you can give any higher despite the way that the match finished being a DQ. I understand the logic of why they've gone behind it, but I think this match would have probably got an extra, maybe half a star had that result have gone through.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go for a 2. I just said, like I said, I'm always soured by DQ finishes on a pay-per-view. I just think, like, imagine if this was back in the 90s when you had to pay $15 or $60 or however much it is that you would pay for these pay-per-views, and you get TV finishes. To me, it'd feel like a complete rip-off.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I do feel the same. And obviously, thankfully for a lot of people, we are in the network era at least. Daz asking, was this Seth's first pay-per-view? No, Seth's first pay-per-view or main roster pay-per-view for WWE was Survivor Series 2012 when the Shield came in and attacked. I believe it was Ryback, the initial first attack there, but it was CM Punk match that was involved at the time of the Survivor Series. And of course, their first pay-per-view match, actually where they competed, was TLC the month afterwards. Of course, it was the Shield against Team Hell No and Ryback in a TLC match.
We need to talk about why Ryback thinks that it was because of him that WWE rated that the greatest debut in history, because they did a countdown of like the best debuts ever, and you had like AJ Styles at the Rumble, and number 1 was the Shield, and Ryback's on Twitter going about how it was because of him. Get over yourself, you weirdo.
I don't know what. Whatever is in the water, he may drink it, but I won't be drinking. I'm not Not feeling that at all. For me, I don't even think it's the greatest one of all time. Personally, I'm still partial to Jericho's one back in '99 when he confronted the Brock, and also, I mean, it's got to be Kane. Obviously, Bad Blood 1997 for me is another one that really stands out.
That's what I mean, and it's because Roman's the champion, and he's the tribal chief, and he's reigned for 1,000 days, and it's like they do this every year. It's like every time, whoever's the champion at the time. And they always get the shine when it comes to these countdown videos. But yeah, I don't think particularly it was that great. Like, I'm more impressed by people that I know that debut in the WWE. You give me 3 NXT guys, I'm like, okay, it's just 3 NXT guys. What justifies that to be the greatest debut ever when you've got Chris Jericho coming out to The Rock of all people on a Monday Night Raw in 1999, you ain't going to take that away from me, man. To me, that's probably one of the, if not the best debut of all time.
He's batting on the other side right now, but obviously he will be a part in this video. We'll be talking about Chris Jericho later on, but yeah, I do agree with you. I think that I mean, what the Shield went on to do, of course, they definitely had an unbelievable run. Unbelievable, and no one can ever take that away. But is it in the top 10? Certainly. But is it number 1 for me? No. But one thing I will just say quickly about championships, and one thing I liked was a little perk of this show, and something we didn't mention before. I love that WWE recognized great champions of the past before a lot of the big matches. So they did do this actually with the tag team championship. So the teams that were mentioned were the likes of the Blackjacks. I thought that was quite a fun throwback. Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, of course, The Rock's father. As you mentioned, The Rock just a couple of seconds ago. Give the trigger for me. The Hart Foundation, Legion of Doom, and Edge and Christian were all featured. And of course, they did the same as well with the women's champions. Of course, I'm going to refuse to say Divas because they were former women's champions. Fabulous Moolah, Wendy Richter, Lita, and Trish Stratus were all featured there. And just before we go on to our next match, we have a quick question here from Eric Douglas. It says, where are Isla and Alba? Are they still NXT champions? Now they're on the main roster. They are still NXT Women's Tag Team Champions. Yes, they haven't lost yet. They still have them. They were on SmackDown this past week. But as I say, that we go into then what was match 4, and I'll give you a brief mention of what it would be. It is the Divas Championship. That's right, Nikki Bella versus Charlotte Flair. And yes, this is Charlotte's, I mean, not first opportunity at the Divas Championship, but certainly the first one on pay-per-view. She did go for it a few days earlier. As we go into the video package, and I quite like this video package, probably one of my favorites of the night, actually. I like the idea of Nikki Bella. Of course, she won the Divas title at Survivor Series the year before, and she says, how did you spend your year? She spent the past year breaking records previously held by AJ Lee. AJ Lee's record, I believe, was 295 days, I believe is the record.
Yeah.
And Nikki got to just over 300 days at this point as the Divas champion. Of course, she brought in what she says is the women's revolution, not the likes of Paige, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, or Charlotte Flair. Charlotte, though, thought she'd won the championship on Raw. Of course, that was the Monday before this show to stop the record being broken. But of course, Twin Magic took place during that show. Charlotte actually pinned Brie Bella and not Nikki, and Stephanie made the rule then that obviously Nikki would still be the champion, but there would be a rematch at Night of Champions. And if Nikki was to lose in any fashion, including count or DQ, she would lose her title. What did you think of this video package?
Do you know what? It done what it needed to do. It told. Oh, whoa! Why is it all me? It done what it needed to do. It's. Do you know what I mean? It was entertaining. It's a very awkward time in the women's division where they're still using the Divas Championship that looks like a giant butterfly, and it's a horrible looking title. And it was also that time where they had dodgy factions where they couldn't think of decent names from, so they simply called them PCB and Team Bad and Team Bella, I think the other one was. So this is where the transition to decent women's wrestling is starting to begin at this point here. But yeah, the package, it done what it needed to do. It was entertaining. It was, yeah, like you said, one of the better ones of the night.
I would agree so as well. I needed a cough, so that's why I came off camera for a second.
I went on full screen and I was like, "What's happening here?"
Element of surprise. You were the sole champion for the moment. There, the tag team champions. You were the breakout star of the team. Yeah. So to go then into the details then of this match. Nikki gets advantage, targeting Charlotte's left leg knee. I quite like this one. She did this quite a few times, actually. The bottom rope was used up from a suplex, which actually got the advantage for her. Also used a dragon screw from the apron to the floor on Charlotte. I thought that was a fun-looking spot as well there. Nikki, though, attempting a number of submissions, including submissions on the leg, like a single Boston Crab on Charlotte Flair, trying to get their submission victory. Charlotte gets back into the match, but continues to sell the leg, which I thought was a nice key element to this match as well. Many times you've seen matches where someone works on a body part. It gets to the point when they go to the comeback, and all of a sudden you forget that they were hurt anywhere. Charlotte Flair uses her big boot with the other foot, but lands awkwardly, almost landing to the floor because she can't put the weight on the left leg. I really liked that moment of the match in particular. Nikki lands another suplex, though, with the leg this time going into the turnbuckle. Nikki goes to the second rope, in desperation, trying to get the win here, and this is where she made her big mistake. She gets caught into a spear. Charlotte applies the figure eight and then wins the Divas Championship via tap out, and we see PCB and Ric Flair celebrating in the ring, including a one-legged strut from Charlotte Flair holding up the Divas Championship. Let's go into the match first rather than the celebration. For me, I thought this match was actually a lot better than I remember. I've got to say, this was a really good match.
I am not Nikki Bella's biggest fan. I honestly, anytime I see a Nikki Bella match, I normally skip over it because they just normally bore me, if I'm honest. Charlotte is Charlotte. Like I said, this is where it all begins. This is where we get the 14-time women's champion, and it all starts on this pay-per-view of all places. But you're right. I watched it back and I was like, this is actually a really good match. I was not expecting it to be as good as this. Like I said, I'm not Nikki's biggest fan, but I was sold on it. I was impressed. It was a great match.
It really was a great match. And like you say, it takes two to the tango. Nikki played her part very, very well. Charlotte is Charlotte. We know some of the great matches she's had in WWE since then. I think for me, I was very invested because I liked the idea of the women's revolution at this time. Obviously, women getting more time. And obviously, because the Bellas were part of that Divas era, I think they kind of were... They were brushed with the old rather than actually the current. And I think that some of that was probably unfair when you look back at it and look and see that Nikki Bella did put some good matches. I remember doing a Backlash 2016 as a throwback one as well. And I must admit, she had a good performance in that match as well. So, I mean, Nikki Bella for me definitely was the better in the two in ring when it comes to the Bella twins. And I've got to say, a great performance here.
I think besides the women that came up from NXT, she probably is the best woman on the roster at that point. Because if you look at the likes of Alicia Fox, you had Brie. I suppose you got Natalia, who's she's okay. But yeah, I suppose for a whole package, for like an entertainment, like she had the character down to a T. They obviously had the whole twin magic thing, which was always fun to see whenever they did it. So yeah, she probably is the best wrestler on the roster at that time before we had this like massive influx of talent come up.
Absolutely, yeah, I have to agree with you indeed, though. And I mean, to be fair, I mean, Paige is probably on the same level as well. I think Paige was probably around at that point. But other than that, like you say there, but yeah, Nikki Bella had a fantastic run as champion. It was the right time for a change. It shows how petty WWE is, though, because AJ Lee, of course, was CM Punk. CM Punk had the infamous bust up with the way he left the company. And of course, WWE, when they have problems, they usually break people's records very, very quickly. AJ Lee's one didn't last very long. But obviously, Charlotte then would remain champion, of course, until the Divas Championship was repackaged into the Women's Championship at WrestleMania 32 a few months later. And of course, we would get great feuds with Charlotte and Sasha Banks, of course, when it go into the summer of 2016, going into, in fact, the winter time as well. So, going into the final details, then we're going to get the star rating in a couple of seconds. But first off, the time of the match was 12 minutes and 47 seconds. And this was given by Dave Meltzer at 3.25 star rating. I'm going to go slightly more generous on this one. I'm going to go for the full 3.5. I really enjoyed this match.
Yeah. I'd say 3.5. I think that seems fair. I think it was one of the better matches on the card. Surprisingly, like if I look at this card without watching the matches, I think that this is going to be an okay match, but it was a hell of a lot better than what I thought it was going to be. Absolutely,
indeed. Then I did enjoy it there. We go back to the comments as well. Daz asking if there's a pay-per-view this weekend or it's the AEW. Everything is next weekend, Daz. So we've got let's go through this quickly. Friday, 26th of May, Under Siege from Impact Wrestling. On Saturday, we've got Night of Champions, of course, from WWE on May 27th. And then May 28th, it's a double header, NXT Battleground and AEW Double or Nothing. All predictions coming on the channel starting from tomorrow. It will be Impact Under Siege. Night of Champions on this channel will be on Tuesday. On Wednesday will be Battleground. And on Thursday will be Double or Nothing. NXSteve kindly coming with me for the live stream Tuesday for Night of Champions. We will be here at 10 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, There we go. We've gone through all of that there then, and obviously we've got 3 matches left on this show. But before we get there, we need to go backstage with JoJo, who's with Kevin Owens, asked about his controversial win. And Chaos says he won't let anything take away this moment. He's had a roller coaster ride, and now he feels complete because now a prize fighter has a prize. And there's no secret to how great he is. KO, always a natural on that mic, isn't he?
Yeah, 100%. It's why I'm massive fan of his, man. He's always delivered. I can't ever say I've ever been unimpressed or like expected more than what Kevin Owens has ever portrayed on the TV. I think he's just absolutely one of the best. He's one of my Mount Rushmore.
Absolutely, he's one of the best in the game today on the stick, and this match he can do things comedic, he can do something serious. He seems to have a lot of range in what he wants to do, and he can deliver things just the way it needs to be done. And here he did it solid as he always does. But we start then with the build then to the next match. I'm not going to put the match up just yet because it's a mystery partner scenario going into this one. We've got who will team with Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose versus the Wyatt family. NXT, did you want to say anything before I go into the video package?
No, I was just saying you didn't want to talk about the cringy Ric Flair, Charlotte Flair strut.
Oh, go on then. Go on then. I thought we almost escaped it.
It was horrendous, man. It was the worst thing they could have possibly done. Don't get me wrong. I can appreciate Rick being like really happy and like he was showing his emotions because his daughter's won her first world championship in WWE. But my God, Charlotte cannot do that strut to save her life, man. It was absolutely terrible. Let's move on. Carry on.
And the thing is, as well, she's meant to be selling a leg injury at this point, so you can see she's hobbling along whilst doing it. It's like it's a bit of an awkward moment. I'm gonna ask the question because look, this is a special moment. Obviously, Charlotte Flair wins her first major championship on the main roster. You can see Ric Flair saying he did it. He does it backstage as well. They have the same basic segment backstage. Rick knows knows Houston better because it's Toyota Center in my mind. Knows Houston better than anybody else when it comes to the party scene. But it's like, this is Charlotte's moment. Do you think that Ric Flair's maybe taking a little bit away from this moment here, making a bit too much about Rick?
Just a little bit. Like it's almost one of them things where it's like, let Charlotte have a moment, and then this is a backstage moment you release on YouTube later where you can actually like upload it and get them to have their moment. But it almost But then again, I suppose it plays perfectly into the story that they have a couple of years later, where Charlotte's like, "This isn't about you; it's about me. Stop trying to steal my moment." So. 50 of one, half of another.
I think you could be onto something there. And to be fair, I'm sure even if there was a bit of taking the moment, I'm sure that's the last thing Ric Flair was intending to do, being in that moment. I'm sure that if anything, he would probably have just been a bit Ric Flair and got just a little bit carried away. I'll give the dirtiest player in the game a pat on the back and just say, just let this one slide. I'm sure he didn't mean it. But anyway, we're going to the video package then, and of course. This starts actually at Money in the Bank, believe it or not, with Roman and the Wyatt family. Roman close to winning Money in the Bank, and of course, Bray Wyatt is the one that stops him. And the thing that I like about this is a very simple storytelling with this one. Anyone but you, kind of how everyone felt at this point. Anyone but Roman to win. And of course, Bray saying, our fun's just getting started. I'm going to be your crown of suffering. That was a really fun little line that he will hunt and destroy. Of course, at this point, the Wyatt family no longer has Eric Rowan a part of it. It's Bray, and of course, I don't think Eric Rowan's a part of it anyway. Not for this show, anyway.
I think he's injured. That's why they bring in Braun.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, that would make perfect sense there because it is Bray and Luke Harper at this point. Obviously, Roman gets the natural backup with Dean Ambrose so that evens up the numbers. But of course, that gets to the point then where we see it's family war. But Wyatt, of course, moves the needle as natural. Like you said, Braun Strowman comes in, and Braun Strowman is just seen as this unstoppable monster. The Black Sheep, Braun Strowman as well, coming with the Black Sheep mask as well, destroying the likes of Randy Orton. And I believe Jim Uso was one of those that was also on video as well. What did you think of this video package?
It is. Do you know what? I watched it and I was like, this is exactly what they could use to use Bray Wyatt today. They have a history. They could, long-term storytelling. It's something they can play off of now and do a story now. Once they take that title off of Roman, you've got a story there for Bray to do when it makes perfect sense. But we know WWE, we know they're creative, and it probably won't happen. But like I said, it was a good way to get Braun on TV because I presume this is where he debuted at Money in the Bank when he came in. Why he doesn't use that submission hold anymore, I do not know. Because I think that is a great move for him to do rather than a running power slam of all things. But yeah, I'll just say it was like I said, I instantly just wanted them to do Bray versus Roman now once that title's off him.
Absolutely. And just to clarify that submission move that Braun Strowman was using at the time that was in this video package, it was a lifting arm triangle hold. It's a very brutal looking spot there. It's quite devastating. Google was a very good help for that because they didn't actually announce that on commentary once. So had to go back in the old history archives to find that one out. But I mean, obviously going into the match, the mystery partner was announced, and believe it or not, WWE can do a bit of long-term storytelling because this was a rival of Bray Wyatt from a year earlier. Chris Jericho was the special announced partner, and of course Jericho apparently been away from WWE for a little while, actually been the host of, or been the top trainer or whatever for Tough Enough as well around that period. So that was a bit of knowledge of a series that I clearly didn't watch, but at the same time I thought this was a fun, interesting choice as a tag team partner.
Yeah, I mean, my brain was sitting there racking going, who is it? And my brain went, it ain't Kurt Angle, is it? I'm like, this is way too early for Kurt Angle to be coming in. So I popped again essentially because I didn't know, I didn't spoil it for myself. I just waited until the actual match played out, and I was pleasantly surprised with it. It was just a shame that it's kind of like, I can see where the results going now because it's Chris Jericho. But apart from that, I was thoroughly happy and impressed and entertained with it.
Absolutely, I kind of felt the same as well. I didn't because you can look at the bottom and you can see what's going on. I don't do that on these shows because for moments like this, I want to feel that same surprise as perhaps what I would have felt back in 2015. I'd forgotten who it was, and I was quite pleasantly surprised. And with one thing you always know with Chris Jericho, that you're going to get some good in-ring with a work rate with Jericho. You know he's going to bring the character work, and if it's going to lead to somewhere going forward as well, Jericho will perfectly leave that seed in there planted at the end of a segment. And funnily enough, that happens here as well. But obviously, Chris Jericho, like I said, having history a year earlier with his rivalry with Bray Wyatt actually ending in a steel cage match. So made sense for him to come in. Apparently, this was Dean Ambrose's call as well. That was said on commentary that Ambrose was one that made the call for Chris Jericho to come in. So obviously going into the match, then obviously the babyfaces have trouble getting Strowman off of his feet. We see Jericho being gorilla press slammed over the top rope on top of Roman and Ambrose. Interesting that heel would do that spot rather than the babyface. Usually it's the other way around. We see the Wyatts dominate on Roman Reigns. Harper doing a dive through the ropes. Of course, got to miss Luke Harper, haven't you? He's, such a shame that he's no longer with us. But Bray obviously was holding him there, hitting a senton on the floor, then onto Roman Reigns. We see the Braun Strowman getting involved on the outside as well, which led to an unhinged Dean Ambrose trying to attack Braun Strowman on the floor with a sleeper, but it gets thrown over the barricade. We lead then to another hot tag, and this time it's Chris Jericho who gets it. A drop kick to Braun, who actually does go to the floor, but doesn't go off of his feet. Jericho lands the Walls of Jericho on Bray, but Luke Harper makes a save. A tag is made to Dean Ambrose there with a double clothesline then done to Bray. We see a tag then for Braun Strowman and also to Roman Reigns, which obviously at that point it's those two that are the main ones in the ring. Roman lands two Superman punches. We get a flying lunatic off the top rope, and Braun Strowman finally goes down. Roman hits the spear, and as Roman's about to get to his feet, we mentioned about storytelling. Chris Jericho makes a blind tag, surprises everybody, including Roman Reigns. Goes to hit a line saw, and obviously Braun Strowman kicks out at two. But then when he goes for the code breaker, Braun Strowman catches him and actually plants Jericho face first. He then lands that submission, the lifting arm chokehold, Jericho eventually passing out for a Wyatt victory. And of course, after the match, we do see all the babyfaces in the ring together. Looks like there's going to be a nod of approval that we've done our best on the night. But of course, Chris Jericho, being Chris Jericho, barges the shoulders of Dean Ambrose, and of course then with Roman, and leaves the scene. So it leaves us with a bit of a tease then. Obviously, we know in 2016 there was a feud with Dean Ambrose and Chris Jericho over, well, I think it was the Ambrose Asylum, if I'm not mistaken, in Extreme Rules. It was Mitch the Plant as well was involved in that one. So yeah, and obviously the jacket is which I believe Dean Ambrose still owes Jericho money for. But at the same time, so we know that has somewhere further down the line. But for this match here, it was all about the Wyatt family getting over. And it seemed clearly with this match as well, even though Roman Reigns is the star in this show, it was to clearly make Braun Strowman seem like a big deal as well.
Yeah, no, it's done what it needed to do, really get Braun over, but it was just entertaining from the word go. Like, it's just one of them great things about tag team wrestling is that you can vary up the competitors every time. Like with the hot tag is like possibly one of the greatest things in professional wrestling because you get the crowd so gassed for it that when it finally hits, they just go absolutely mad for it. But no, it just summed it all up. You had Jericho's return. You had Braun finally going down after being worked on by all three. It took all three of them to get him down. You got Bray just being Bray, Luke Harper just being Luke Harper and doing like some fantastic in-ring work. It was just a solid match from bell to bell.
It really, really was, and I've got to say that I'd forgotten completely about this match, but I quite enjoyed it, and I must admit it was a sleeper pick of what could have been actually a match of the night candidate, because I mean this match went on for 13 minutes and 5 seconds, and obviously Big Dave gives us a 4-star rating. I do think that the in-ring work here was actually pretty solid throughout this match. I'm not going to give it as high a rating as that. I'm going back again for the 3.5, but overall I thought that this was a solid encounter. Did everything it needed to do.
Yeah, no, I do. I'd probably agree with you on that. I think it is. It does what it needs to do. It's for me, it probably is match of the night, just because I think the crowd are a lot more involved in it. And if you, I mean, aside from the fact there's no title on the line, and kind of makes sense, but doesn't make sense being on this pay-per-view. But I think it's just a solid match overall. And I can't really find any flaws with it. I think the decision's right. I think the person who loses is right. How they win is right. I can't find a flaw with it, really.
No, absolutely. And of course, end of the day, we know that Roman Reigns does go on to take on Bray Wyatt inside Hell in a Cell a month later. Roman gets the victory there. So that leads to Roman going to start the path then to get to WrestleMania 32, where he would actually eventually go and take on Triple H as well. And of course, he did become champion actually at Survivor Series as well, didn't he? Going through the tournament at the time. And of course, that led to someone else that we'll talk about later on in Sheamus. So we've got plenty still to discuss here in the video. But
Isn't the Rumble the following year where he has to defend it against Triple H? Is that the one where he has to?
Yeah,
he has to go the distance and goes in at 1 against okay. So that's what I mean. He has a pretty good year after this.
He does indeed, yeah. And obviously, I mentioned Sheamus' name. He's actually involved in the next segment backstage because Seth Rollins, of course, is wished luck by Triple H and Stephanie. They tell him that he's the man, that if anyone can do this, defending 2 titles back to back, it's him. And Sheamus comes with the money in the bank after Seth leaves and agrees that Seth is ready, but so is he. Loving that tease with money in the bank, especially when you have to defend 2 championships in a row. And like I said, I love the nod to the former champions as well. Obviously, Seth is current United States champion and WWE champion. A nod to former US champions in Harley Race, Sting, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Eddie Guerrero, and Booker T, all fine former US champions. And of course, the former WWE champions in Bruno Sammartino, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and The Rock. But something I will just say very quickly, Michael Cole says all of the names apart from The Rock. He says, and more, instead of The Rock's name coming in the graphic. I don't know if there was a glitch or something with the TV screen at the time, but I did find it kind of comedic, the fact that he would have mentioned The Rock's name.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? I think it's just the fact that you think of greatest WWE champions in history, and The Rock's like top 5, like especially for you and me since we've been watching it. I mean, if you reel off the head, you go Austin, you go Rock, you go Cena, you go Roman, because you know what I mean? These are like 4 names that have been consistently champion. And your 5th, you can toggle between, I don't know, Jericho, Taker, whoever. So I think it's just one of the moments in commentary where he just has a relapse in his brain and just says The Rock, but there's no graphic for him.
Absolutely, yeah. There you go, indeed. There. Well, we'll move on to the video package because the video package now is for the next 2 matches. It's one lump all together. So we'll go through that, and then we're going to probably break down some of these matches because this is where I start getting a lot of notes, just in case anyone was wondering here. So the video package, of course, shows that this has been the year of Seth Rollins, of course, since actually being with the Authority. The Money in the Bank cash-in, of course, at WrestleMania 31, where he did the heist of the century, walking away as WWE Champion. We see then SummerSlam, obviously just a month earlier, where he wins the United States Championship. Of course, Jon Stewart costing John Cena at that match. Still bizarre to this day. Of course, I know that WWE does that for reasons, obviously mainstream publicity reasons.
No payoff to that either. He just does it, and there's nothing ever happens to it afterwards.
No, I think it was they mentioned it was shown as a clip somewhere, but I mean, yeah, just for storytelling, it just never made sense to it. But they did say anyway. Triple H says that
that's right. The Daily Show won an Emmy, and they used that moment from that pay-per-view all over it, and Cole starts banging on about it because of that. That's the reason why they won an award or something.
Yeah, something like that, isn't it? So we'll go with allegedly. I'm not sure how true that is, but you know, at the end of the day, they did use that footage, and WWE are all over it when that happens. But obviously, Triple H does say that Seth Rollins is the man. Statue is going to be revealed of Seth Rollins, but actually ends up being Sting under there. I really thought it was a fun reveal as well. Sting says that Seth is saying that he's a legend in his own mind, and obviously he's not in the same breath as all these other legends. Seth managed to hang on though, only with the help of the Authority. Seth goes on to say, but he wants his statue. It turns out that Sting has it, and he gets crushed by an Apple Valley waste truck. I thought it was a fun little ingredient as well there. But when Seth is actually talking about Sting in the ring, this is when John Cena comes out and reminds the Authority a statement that was made that every title will be on the line at Night of Champions. Cena says he's cashing in his rematch for Night of Champions for the US title. And of course, Stephanie reluctantly has to accept. And then the big tagline once again, 2 matches versus 2 legends. Can Seth do it? Obviously, we know the answer to that there, but we'll be talking about it in detail as well. What do you reckon of this video package?
It's a great video package. It's just, for me, there's 2 things in it that I remember the statue being crushed by the garbage truck. And for me, it made me laugh out loud because it was a case of it's supposed to be a bronze statue. And you can see when it's getting broken up that it's clearly polystyrene or plastic or whatever. So I always used to die at that part. But then, like I said, now the way that I look at wrestling now since doing all these reviews over the last couple of years and stuff, my brain sits and goes, do you know what? In 2015, if I'd seen John Cena come out, like I said, the foreshadowing would have been like, I know who's winning the matches on the night because I know what happens with a John Cena match. I think that's the only thing that ruins it for me is John Cena in the whole package, is because to me now it gives away the answer. 2015, it's solid across the board. 8 years later, not so much.
Oh yeah, it's a fair argument you make there when you said that. C Nation's back in there now with a take. It says Seth Rollins really had a better career than Roman Reigns from 2015 to 2019. Certainly in popularity, I would have to agree with that.
Yeah, I would have to say that as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, we'll get into it when we get into the Sting match, but there is some not too good moments for Seth Rollins during this period as well.
Absolutely. It goes a bit up and down for both. Obviously, Seth has a big injury not too long afterwards as well. But let's go into the John Cena match then, shall we? That's the first one in of the 2. Then the double header that Seth has to put himself through. And of course, this one is for the United States Championship. Now, NXT, I'm going to come to you in blocks actually, because as I said, there's quite a lot of notes. I don't want to just reel off here everything and then we go into others. We'll break it down. But what I like, one thing is how this match actually starts is a very uncharacteristic start from Cena, because rather than doing that sort of slow, start looking to build an advantage, he looks like he wants to get revenge for that broken nose at SummerSlam, looking to try and punch Seth in the face numerous times, actually putting the face in the turnbuckle as well. But we see that Seth obviously trying to escape it clearly, hitting an early blockbuster for a near fall attempt. We see also Rollins landing a double stomp from a top rope with Cena just hanging there. That's one of my least favorite moves in wrestling. It's even also a pet peeve of mine. Del Rio used to use that as a finishing move. What do you reckon of that when someone's just hanging on the turnbuckle and the double stomp is done there?
I'm not a fan of it either, but then I thought the same during the Dudley Boyz New Day match when Biggie does the splash in the apron, the way Bubba's hanging off the side of the ring. I inwardly cringe every time I see it because I'm like, do you know what? That could seriously go wrong. But then you could say the same about the coup de grace and all that when Finn does that stomp. Do you know what I mean? I know Finn obviously like bends his knees when he lands, but it only takes a wrong thing, and that's someone's chest you're going to cave in, man. Or you know what I mean? You could easily slip, and especially with the one off the turnbuckle, because you're waiting to just seriously knock someone out. Like you connect wrong.
Absolutely. But the thing for me as well, though, because I agree with every point you just made there, by the way, but I also feel as well, the wrestler has to hold himself there. It's like, well, the wrestler wouldn't do that, would they? Wouldn't just sit there and wait. I know it's the same thing as well when they're all standing on the outside waiting for someone to jump on them, but it's like, it's the same vibe,
But it's like the Irish whip. No one in the world has momentum. If someone throws you into the ropes, what momentum is forcing you to come back on themselves? It just doesn't make sense. So it does in the case of it's like, oh, I'm going to attack them now and turn it in my favor, but otherwise, there's no point in you running. Just stop.
Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, wrestlers.
Why do we watch wrestling?
I don't know. Wrestlers apparently are natural boomerangs. I never realised that till today. But yeah, we've learned something new there. But we go into the match.
They come straight back again.
Exactly. But one thing we do get into, because there's a lot of reversals in this match. It seems that these two, they clearly should tell the story. They know each other very, very well. Seth Rollins mimics the 5-knuckle shuffle, but of course Cena actually does the shoulder block there when Seth comes off the rope there. Cena actually attempts it the same, but then gets a kick in the face, and then it's hit for a sling blade for a near fall. Same thing happens again with Cena attempt it a second time. So then Seth goes to do the kick, but it's blocked. And then actually there's these two. Sorry, yeah, Pop Rocks, exactly. Yeah, the
He does Pop
Sunset Flip
Rocks.
Bomb. Yeah, I thought it was a really cool looking spot. Then, obviously, this is John Cena in 2015, where he was actually doing a lot of his good matches during those United States Open challenges and stuff. This was like Cena at probably his prime of in-ring wrestling. Wouldn't you agree with moves like this?
Oh, absolutely. Like I was instantly thinking 5 moves of doom, and that was it. But no, he was doing stuff there that you're like, man, I forgot actually Cena can wrestle if he actually put some effort into it. Because yeah, he's doing like that. Pop Rocks completely shocked me. I was like, where's he pulled that out from? But no, just in general, some great stuff. And it's like, I can understand, obviously, as you get older, your body can't do as much. But he wrestles like once in a blue moon. You can do more than 5 moves, John. Come on now, seriously. But no, this was solid stuff. I was really impressed by John Cena in this match.
Absolutely, indeed. Then, of course, he does go attempt for an AA very shortly afterwards, but Seth lands on his feet. We see then Seth kick John Cena in the stomach, takes him to his knees, followed by kick in the face. We get a near fall there. A couple of fun spots that leads after this, which doesn't really have any continuity, but Seth doing a flip over the top rope. We see Cena again going outside the 5 moves of doom as well, doing a second rope tornado DDT. Cena's got all of them up his sleeve, hasn't he, tonight?
Even later on when he does it, but obviously you'll get to it, the leg drop off the top rope. I'm like, well, when does John Cena ever do a move off the top rope anymore?
You don't see it in these days that often. If he does, he tends to miss it if he ever goes for it. But of course, Seth Rollins, like you said, they actually meets John Cena the first time he goes to the top rope. Clearly, he was attempting this before. This is where we see one of the early days, I guess, of Seth going for that superplex, followed by the Falcon Arrow. That was a near fall attempt there. But of course, Cena, of course, managing to get the advantage again, hitting the STFU on Seth, but Seth gets the rope. So then Cena immediately gets Seth into the AA position, but Seth counts. It actually goes to the back and actually lands into a buckle bomb instead. So Cena gets that taken to him. It's another near fall. Cena then has another cross body attempt. This is rolled through this time where Seth Rollins actually attempts the AA position as well. I thought that was going to be fun if he would actually land that move, but Cena does reverse it, hits a reverse suplex, and like you say, followed by that leg drop off the top rope there, where obviously Seth Rollins gets back to his feet, kind of bending over as he does. This leads to Cena then finally hitting the attitude adjustment, and then we get a pinfall for a brand new United States champion. And obviously this match here looks to be the longest on the show, 16 minutes and 1 second. And to be fair, this was action-packed from start to finish for me. And like I said, this is my favorite match of the entire show.
Yeah, say like again, 8 years later, and we know what we expect from a John Cena match in 2023. But going back and watching it, I was again, I'm blown away by it because it was not what I was expecting. I was expecting Seth to be on top for most of the time. Cena does his 5 moves, bish bash bosh, done. John's your new champion, and then he goes on his merry way. But yeah, would you say it over delivered for what I was expecting, and I was happily surprised by it.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, then let's get your star rating in. What would you give this as a star rating for a match?
I'm probably going to say 3.5 because you're right. It's up there as one of the best matches on the it's up there as one of the best matches of the night. Like I said, I think my 2023 brain just because I know it's John Cena and lol John Cena wins really, but I'd say 3.5 star.
I think this is probably the right result, though, looking at it, because obviously Seth being the double champion, obviously when someone's actually a world champion, it does take away from that mid-card title after a while. But at the same time as well, it makes you wonder as well, what's Seth going to do now? Because he's gone through one match and lost. How is he going to get through the next one? But I kind of feel like this again, for me, as I said, match of the night, I'm going for a 3.75, I think, maybe. Could actually stretch to the 4, just about a 4-star. The Big Dave has gone for 4-star for this match as well. And I've got to say that this ticked a lot of boxes for me, and it's not the first time these two had a great match in 2015, including Brock Lesnar. They were involved at the Royal Rumble, of course, in the triple threat match for the championship. And of course, well, the less said about that pay-per-view, probably the better. But at the same time, some great stuff all around here. And obviously, just before we go to the chat, we have just a little bit of a narrative that follows after this match as well. Obviously, Seth tries to leave with the WWE Championship, thinking, well, I'm getting out of here. Obviously, I've lost this match. I'm not going to go for the next one. Cena blocks him and says, you've got to face Sting. Cena picks Seth up and hits an AA on the floor, throws Seth back into the ring, and Seth's just laying there in the ring. And as Seth comes to, that's when Sting's music hits. And I mean, to be fair, what a great way for Cena to finish it off there, really getting the babyface that John Cena is, obviously leaving Seth Rollins there for Sting to come and pick up the pieces.
Yeah, I mean, again, my 2023 brain has just been like, it's foreshadowing. I know what's going to happen. Like, I'm not being funny, but in any modern day now, if one guy's defending 2 titles in a row, The guy who's in the second match is already out there. He ain't waiting. He's already out by ringside. As soon as he loses that match, or even if he wins it, the guy should be there. He should be hopping in the ring. Ref, ring the bell. I'm gonna beat this guy in 10 seconds, and that's it. Like it's just one of those irritating things that annoys me about WWE, I suppose. But yeah, it's just foreshadowing, unfortunately, and it really winds me up because I just know what's going to happen. It was the same at Clash when Drew finally hit the Claymore and he doesn't win, and I'm like, that's it, he's lost. I don't need to watch anymore. I know Drew's losing this at Clash. I can go home. I can leave 20 minutes early. It's fine. But yeah, it's one of them annoying pet peeves with professional wrestling, unfortunately.
Oh, that's fair play. That's fair play. I think everyone plays their role quite well on this show, but I can understand maybe 2015 me probably would have looked at it the same way. But I think 2023 me is a lot more forgiving for John at this point now.
Don't get me wrong. 2015 me is probably thinking, yeah, well, Sting's winning this now. There's no way. He's had 2 AAs off John Cena. He's lost his US title. Seth's walking away with nothing. 2023 me is like, yeah, well, Seth's winning.
Absolutely. Well, let's quickly go through C Nation. He's got quite a few comments that have come through, so we'll quickly roll through those ones before we go to the Sting match. He says, apologies for being off topic. No worries, CD. Roman having 4 belts at this same time will break the Miz's record of having the most titles at the same time, which is 3. Interesting. That would that be Miz? What ones would they have been? I remember he had like the IC, maybe the tag. Maybe US or something. I don't know what it would have been. You have to clarify it for us, C Nation. My brain's a little bit off with some of these tonight. So you have to let me know what ones they were. But John Cena's not won a singles match since 2018, apparently. Needs to start winning more matches for challenging the titles. I bet he's John Cena, but eventually it will become too predictable. Does seem to when he comes back these days. I think the last 2 have been quite predictable. Remember how in the old days he used to dominate John the whole match, and John would just come back at the end. It's pretty much how it was for about a decade and a bit. And he's tired of John Cena having the same ref bumping matches. He's about to do an attitude adjustment, someone, and then the person's leg hits the referee. It's used a lot. It certainly is, thankfully, not in this show. Thankfully, that's the only thing that's a bit of a saving grace. It's not done here. And he says, if you think about it, Ric Flair's had more world titles than Ric Flair in WWE. WWE may not count WCW, may count WCW, but I do not. And that's very true. Ric Flair, a lot of his 16 world titles are from WCW and the NWA. In fact, most of them from the NWA.
They count the NWA.
But they do count them indeed for Ric Flair's history. But of course, John Cena, the most WWE title reigns of all time. And also
technically, Bruno Sammartino isn't the longest reigning WWE champion of all time. He's the longest reigning WWF champion. So yeah, it's just one of them things, unfortunately.
Details. I think that's what it goes to. Details. As Miz is with the United States and the Unified Tag Team titles with the Big Show, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, would be around 2010. 2010, that would be around there, C Nation. Yes, we're going all different years and generations today, ladies and gentlemen. If you're keeping score at home there, but one thing we are going to promise you now, then, it's main event time, everyone. So this is the nitty gritty. This is where it gets well. It's a bit sad if we're being brutally honest, but it's Seth Rollins versus Sting for the WWE Championship. Now, of course. Should we go through some of the details of the match and come through to you bits and pieces? Again, there's quite a few notes here. So, I mean, obviously, we mentioned the idea that Seth is getting back up as Sting's music hits. Seth, poor lad, he gets Sting's coat thrown at him as he's getting up. But the match starts with a Stinger splash in the corner. Sting trying to get it done early, like you said there, the sort of classic WWE method here, going for the Scorpion Deathlock, but Seth makes it to the ropes before the hold can be applied. Seth then escapes the Scorpion Death Drop as well. And Seth looks then for that cheap way out by grabbing a monitor ringside to try and get that DQ to just try and get out of there. But for his troubles, he's thrown into the barricade twice. I thought that it really, of a positive note from this, the match for me started off in the right way, a good way. It's natural, like you said, Sting would try and go for those big hitters, try and close this off quickly. But obviously Seth as well, the desperation. The guy's just wrestled for 20 minutes already nearly. Obviously going through the stuff after the scene, the match as well, been hit on the floor. You'd think he would be near enough done for. So this kind of makes sense storytelling-wise.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to watch really because I know we sit there and talk about like the logic of the match makes perfect sense, but it's like we all know what happens after this, and it really sours this match for me because I really struggle to watch it because I'm just waiting for them 2 key points to happen where I'm like, that's it now. This is one and done. But I think that's what takes this match or takes it away from this match, because I'm just again sitting there waiting for it. And as much as I'm trying to enjoy what happens in the build up to these points, it's just inevitable that I know what happens, and because you've got to think about it, this is technically Sting's last singles match. Since then, he's not had a singles match since then, and it's a crying shame. And it just, like I said, it really sours it for me. But back to the match, yeah, it's exactly what he needs to do. He's, like you said, he's been through 20 minutes. He's trying to survive, really, and it's Seth Rollins, and he's so good at doing this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm sitting there watching these two matches, and I'm thinking, how many times has this guy reversed out of a move and landed on his feet? Because he's done it about 7 times between the two matches. So he's just so good at doing this stuff. It's everything else that sours it, though.
It is indeed. Obviously, the first scary bump comes moments later. Obviously, I mentioned about Seth Rollins going to the barricades. He goes outside the ring again, and this is to a point where he's trying to get over the barricade just to try and get away through the crowd. But Sting on the table at this point, as to get off the table, realizes he can't pull Seth up the table that way. But they get onto Michael Cole's announce table, the United States announce table. And obviously, this is a point where you think, well, is Seth going to go through a table? Instead, Seth desperately just pushes Sting, and Sting goes through the Spanish announce table. But this is where the first probably scary spot comes, because the question is asked as well: does Sting's back of his head hit a TV monitor whilst going through that table?
It's not his head, actually; it's his arm. Because if you look afterwards, the back of his right arm is going purple instantly, so that you can tell that's where the problem lies with this. This wasn't what caused the major damage. But if you watch the rest of the match afterwards, the back of his right arm is bruised to high heaven where he lands on that table. And I didn't realize it before. But then if you sit there and watch him afterwards, he's constantly doing that, like he's got a pinched nerve or something in his arm, his muscle's gone or something. And it's really shocking to watch. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a typical WWE trope where you have Michael Cole and he introduces the commentators. If he goes to the Spanish announce table, you know someone's going through that table at some point through the night. It was just an unwritten rule. If the Spanish announcement team get introduced, someone's going through that table. But the fact that the table doesn't even get prepped, no, they don't take the monitors off, they don't take the branded logo across the top of the table off. It's quite an actual shocking table spot, because normally they try and protect each other and not do these kind of things. But like I said, to still have the monitors on, and the fact that it does look like he hits his head, but like I said, it's all in the arm for this one. It's actually a really bad spot.
It's a nasty looking spot, and I've got to say, it's the first frightening one. There's 3 frightening spots in this match. Obviously, the last one is where it's the most clear. But obviously, like you said there, this is the beginning of where it can go to, because Sting obviously is putting his body through a lot, and Sting, for the most part of this match, does continue through it and powers through it, and actually manages to then some couple of, I suppose, shall we say, crowd-pleasing spots through the match. But obviously, the way this follows after that, going through the table, he actually gets body slammed on the floor on a part of the table that had already been broken. This led then to then actually being put inside the ring. There's a near fall. We see Seth Rollins going for more near falls after a sling blade and a Falcon Arrow. And then there comes the second scary spot. And this is where it becomes probably the first of the scary spots, because this is when you mentioned about the feeling of the hands. This is the first time I noticed it after the first buckle bomb that's done, which is a near fall attempt. That for me looked a bit scary, because you look and see like that. And just when you see that there, for me, is a bit like, guys, maybe we should wrap this up. Maybe we shouldn't go all the way. But they do carry on.
But then I think that's more props to Sting, because Sting being Sting, Sting's been in that position. He's been in there against Jeff Hardy when Jeff Hardy was absolutely stone cold drunk out of his brain. And he's had to, unfortunately, do a roll up in the main event of a pay-per-view. And that's not, you can just tell that Sting is so old school that he's going to be like, do you know what? For whatever the injury is, whether it be a pinched nerve or a dead arm or whatever, he can tell that he can carry on. It's like, so I suppose we have to give him props for that, because at the end of the day, he wants to give the fans what they deserve. And he's not the first, and he won't be the last person to ever do it. But it's what happens afterwards where it's like, yeah, you really just need to end this now. And they should have really called an audible.
They should have done. I mean, to be fair, I think they do kind of go to a different finish. I don't know if that finish is meant to be how it was meant to be done, but certainly, obviously, like you said, the Sting is able to continue after this, and this is where one of those crowd pleasing spots comes in, because obviously to go through narrative of where it leads to, but Seth goes for a pedigree and it's reversed over the top rope, and we see that actually does a springboard Seth then from the outside, and he's pushed off by Sting to the floor. Clearly buys Sting just that little bit more time to check that everything's okay. But the comeback begins to split from Sting. There's 2 Sting splashes in the corner. Sting does then a crossbody, and this is the one I was going to say there, from the top rope to the floor.
Yeah.
Sort of thing you see him doing AEW now off balconies these days. But like obviously, like we said there, he must be okay to still go if he's going to do a crossbody from the top rope to the floor. Either that or he's just clearly off his rocker at this point.
Yeah, I mean that was the logic I had as well. Like obviously, again, if you're watching this for the first time, you're like, okay, it's probably not as bad as what it seems. He's willing to throw himself 20 foot to the floor and land on someone, so it can't be as bad as what it seems. And like I said to you, like you said, the moment where Seth goes for the springboard and Sting just grabs both his legs, pushes him off, you can obviously tell what's going on in that moment. So, like I said, you think, all right, it's cool, everything's going to go back to normal. We're just going to get the rest of this match now, however it plays out.
Absolutely, indeed. And obviously, for a minute, they look like Sting may get the victory because it's a Scorpion Death Drop at last there. But it's a near fall. Seth's foot actually gets to the bottom rope. Another Stinger splash, and this is when Sting goes for the 10 punches. And this is where, unfortunately, our fears do get to the worst, unfortunately. This is where Seth then does another buckle bomb. And you can see from this one, the way that Sting lands, the way his arms arch, the way his back leads into it as well there. Sting's wobbly after this. He's then thrown.
I genuinely forgot how bad it was. Like, I obviously haven't watched this pay-per-view since 2015.
Same.
So to go back and watch this, and like I said, it makes sense now why this match has never been put on YouTube as a free match, because it is quite painful to watch. And like I said, watching it initially again, I'm like, as soon as he hits that buckle and he gets up, you can tell from Seth's expecting him to kick him or something. And Sting is struggling to stand up, and it's horrific.
Absolutely. And of course, he still soldiers on. And this is when you know really gets bad, because Seth throws Sting across the ropes. And like we said there, the boomerang, they come back. Seth goes for what looks like a clothesline. And instead of Sting sort of ducking, he kind of just collapses. He's down on the ground, to the point that EMTs have to come and check. And obviously, Seth's for a minute, like, trying to get the boos from the crowd. Obviously, he's got to do something at the time. We'll just stand there and watch with empathy, even though obviously it's probably what he wants to do. He's still in character at this moment. But like Sting, obviously, is being checked for a good couple of minutes by EMTs. Fans obviously chanting, "Let's go, Sting! Let's go, Sting!" We see an EMT is pushed away by Sting. Sting obviously feels like, I'm finishing this match no matter what. And obviously the match does recommence. We see Seth go and attempt a pedigree. That's countered. And obviously that goes into the Scorpion Deathlock. Then it is applied. Seth makes it to the bottom rope. And of course, then Seth's leg is pulled. Obviously, like you said there, Seth manages to use the top rope to kind of put himself on both feet, kick Sting around the head, goes for pedigree a second time, but again, it's countered, almost going into another Scorpion Deathlock, but this time Seth counters it into a roll-up pin, and this way Seth Rollins actually retains the championship, retains the WWE championship. In my opinion, and it's an opinion here, I don't know how this match was meant to finish, but this may have not been how this match was meant to end, but it kind of felt like this was probably the safest way they could have done it to get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do anything, like, you can clearly see that something's wrong with Sting.
Absolutely.
The fact that the doctor's in ring, you've got Sheamus out the back there with that money in the bank briefcase. Call an audible, man. Make Sheamus attempt to cash in and try and turn it into a triple threat. Let Sting roll out the ring and just have some time to recover, and then just go for a completely haywire of a finish. Don't even let Sheamus cash it in. Just have a brawl break out. Then have, like, whatever happens afterwards come out. It just, like, you really could. You're really sitting there and think what's going through Vince's mind at that point. Like, this is like I think what Sting's probably late 40s, early 50s at this point in 2015.
Probably, yeah.
And you're sitting there thinking, you're broadcasting this guy who's clearly struggling. Now Seth's trying to do whatever Seth can do, but again, this because we're blessed now with the pumped in audio. it's just a dead silence. It's such an awkward moment where you're sitting there and you've got Sting, you've got Seth just standing going like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this moment. So he tries doing whatever he can to be heelish, but yet they keep showing Sting and the Doctor and the referee, and it's like, I'm sorry, have we not learned from what we're supposed to do in these kinds of moments where you're not like? Do you remember? Like, I'm trying to think of a stipulation where it's kind of same. Like, remember when Ericsson had a heart attack at the World Cup? Did the TV cameras broadcast him to the world? No, they took him off the camera. And this is what they should have done here. It was, yeah, I tell you what, it was probably one of the lowest points I've seen WWE do in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's not good for the viewing eye. It's very uncomfortable, and obviously, like you say, we didn't know at that time how bad it was or how bad it could be. Obviously, they did manage to finish a match. Obviously, like I say, I suppose we've got to give credit to Sting again there, but obviously, it's a case of it's just very sad to see, and it's very uncomfortable for the viewer. And like you say, maybe an audible should have been called. Obviously, they did.
But then as well, this is actually I think this is probably the starting point of where Seth starts to get labelled as not a safe worker.
There was a period,
because obviously, because he has this match with Sting, which causes Sting to get injured. I think at SummerSlam the following year is when he faces Balor and does the same thing, buckle bomb into the barrier on the outside, which causes the injury to Balor, which causes Balor to, he wins the match at the end, he carries on, but he has to forfeit it. Obviously, there was the week prior when he broke John Cena's nose. Do you know what I mean? So, this whole period of sort of 2015 to 2016, I can remember a lot of news outlets reporting that he's not safe and he's doing all these dangerous moves and he's putting people's lives at risk. So you got to imagine the effect that it's having on him. We know Seth isn't a dangerous wrestler; it's just an unfortunate moment. But news journalists being news journalists put one and one together and get 19. So, do you know what I mean? They're going to make the worst out of a situation like this. So, do you know what I mean? It doesn't play out well for anyone at the end of this match.
No, you've worded that really well. There's not really much I can add on top of that there, but I do agree with wholeheartedly. Obviously, Seth, there's a serious situations that they all know what they're doing when they get into the ring. They all know that each and every time it's a risk, and this is what they put their bodies on the line. It's not ballet, as they say, ladies and gentlemen. This is always what they've gone with. But there was a period like that for Seth, and it's a real shame that that's what was labelled for a period, and it's obviously a big shame as well that this was Sting's last WWE match. Obviously, after this, Sting would announce when he went into the Hall of Fame the following year that he was retired, and obviously that leads to new questions of its own, which we'll do first. We'll do that because this is a segment I brought in for the video. What if we never got the Taker match? Everyone wanted Sting versus Undertaker. That was the match that Sting wanted to come in. That was the rumored match that we were going to get at WrestleMania 27 before Sting re-signed with Impact Wrestling. When he came in at WrestleMania 31, that was the match we all thought we were getting. Instead, it was Sting versus Triple H. To be fair, it was quite fun for what it was at the time, nostalgia, DX, NWO, that sort of stuff. But we never got the sort of matches we wanted. And what more could have happened? Could Sting have been used in a different capacity in WWE? Was it right for him to keep facing the younger guys? Should he have been facing some of these legends, the dream matches we wouldn't have seen? What about the likes of John Cena versus Sting? Stuff like that would have been big probably back then. Was this a missed opportunity of what could have been with Sting in WWE?
You could have had Sting just like for me, when you have him against Triple H and he loses at Mania, I think is dumb. Because, all right, Taker was facing Bray. They've already had that narrative building for a while. That's the story. Mind you, Sting come in at Survivor Series before Mania, whenever he debuted in 2014 or something. Or
that's
early
the bill
2015.
for him and Triple H. Yeah, the start there. Yeah.
Right. So I'm saying you still could have done the Undertaker match. Instead they went with Bray Taker, and it's like, right. So surely the logic is to have Sting beat Triple H, to then go on to the following year to have him lose to Taker, because no one beats Taker at Mania. Do you know what I mean? It's just one of them things, and you could have had that match, and it would have been. I think it would have been more respectful for Sting, because look, at the end of the day, he had 4 matches, and of 4 of them, 3 of them were singles matches, and he won one, and he only won one via DQ. And I'm sitting thinking to myself, this guy's an icon. He's up there with Ultimate Warrior. He's up there with Hulk Hogan. Do you know what I mean? This guy was like you remember Saturday mornings watching WCW and seeing Sting in his face paint, even when he was like old Hawaiian Sting. And I just think he was treated so badly in WWE that I can understand why. That he and obviously this match didn't help because it's ultimately ended his career for the next 6 years before he came back in 2021, I think it was, when he came back with Darby Allin. So absolutely they could have used him right. I mean, Sting never needed a world championship. Sting's like a Bray Wyatt. He just needs a storyline. He just needs a motive, an inspiration to wrestle. He didn't need a world championship. It was like, I'm not being funny. What's one of the greatest storylines he's ever been in? He's not joining the NWO. That was never about a championship. That was, do you know what I mean? He was so badly used and so improperly used. It really winds me up. And it's the biggest what if. Why didn't we ever get Taker Sting at Mania? Because it was the match everyone wanted. Everyone who was a wrestling fan said if you could have one dream match, you'd want Sting versus Taker. I don't want Austin versus Goldberg. I don't want, do you know what I mean? I want Sting versus Taker because these were the two biggest wrestling icons from both the biggest wrestling companies. Hogan was in both, so you know what I mean? You have to rule him out of it. You had Sting, who was the WCW guy, never left the company. You had Taker, who was the WWE guy, never left the company. Have them have a match at Mania. It would have been what you would have expected for two 50-plus-year-old men wrestling at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But it would have been, like I said, it would have been just one of them matches. It just would have gone down as like, we finally got to see Sting versus Taker. It wouldn't have underdelivered. Don't get me wrong, it wouldn't have been the greatest match in the world, but it would have been great because those two can work.
The thing is, as you said, a lot of that are perfectly, and actually took a lot of the words out of my mouth there. But I mean, the thing is, with Sting and Taker, it's the story. That's all it's all about. With Sting in the rafters, Taker doing, the stuff that Taker's done over the years there, rest in peace, all that sort of stuff there. It sounds dark. It sells itself, exactly. And like you said, it's the two guys there. Sting was never brought in the Invasion time when WCW was purchased. They could have gone and got the contract like they could have done with a lot of the others to bring in and actually make the Invasion angle work. But they didn't do that. In the end, Sting, when he was free, he went to TNA. They didn't even take him up then. Sting just looked at the way that WCW was treating him and thought, no, I'm going to go to TNA instead. When the opportunity was to bring Sting in, the opportunity never arrived. And when it did happen, some would argue it was too late. Some would say it was too late. And like you say, it's to a point. The match would not have been great with The Undertaker, but you said it earlier on then. This is exactly the point I would have made. Sting didn't need to be in this match. This was a match that never needed to happen because this wasn't a match that, when you think Sting's coming to WWE, that this is a match I need to see. The matches were The Undertaker. The matches were, you mentioned Bray Wyatt. That would have been a match we'd have wanted to have seen. It would have been all those sort of gimmicky kind of matches, those kind of superstars, and arguably would have been probably different styles of matches. Now, obviously, sometimes different styles gel really, really well, and it's clear to show that from a portion of this match, for a number of this match as well, Sting can hang in there. He was doing very, very well. It was the buckle bombs that did the damage. And it was the first one that landed not very well. The second one landed even worse, and that's what led to what happened. And led to the uncomfortableness. But the match other than that is actually the match before. It was a really good match. It was all right. Up until the end, it was scary because we know now, looking back over it, but watching at the time, you see it's a decent match to the point you see Sting can't go anymore. And now you look for the signs when you watch it this time over, and that's what's more uncomfortable on a second time watch. But it's like you say, that this didn't need to happen. I suppose storyline senses, stuff like that, with Steph being the legend and stuff like that. I guess that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to do two matches versus two legends. Sting was a legend they had at the time in WWE. That was the one they thought they would make it work. It could have been, like you said, if someone else had taken the spot, it could have been the same thing happening to them. Who knows? We would never know. But it's just a shame we never got this stuff with Sting. It would have been it's such a missed opportunity.
But the thing with Sting is this match should have happened 6 months earlier. His whole invasion angle was against the Authority and helping them win at Survivor Series. And it's like, why have we waited nearly a year to get this match? Like, all right, I understand that Triple H was the main focus and that was the match for Mania. But again, like I said, it was booked wrong. Sting should have won. Just because he's a WCW guy, it doesn't mean he needs to lose. The match he needed to lose was the match to Taker because it would have made more sense. I don't know if it's ego and it's Triple H like pull in rank and just be like, no, I'm not losing to Sting. Sting's a WCW guy. Why would I lose to a WCW guy at a WWE's biggest pay-per-view year? Obviously, there's all that speculation about that kind of stuff, but I just don't understand how you can book him so wrong. He's an attraction. Can you imagine the amount of money they would have made if they'd have booked Taker versus Sting at WrestleMania? The dream match, the once in a lifetime. Forget your Hogan versus Rock and your Rock versus Cena. Taker versus Sting is the match that everyone wanted, because you could have Hogan versus Rock. You could have Cena versus Rock. Like they did, because they did them twice. That was the point. This was supposed to be that one-time match that we were never going to get again. And they fluffed it. They absolutely fluffed it.
They really, really did, and they missed out on a big payday for what could have been for that match, for that show. Whatever, if it had been a WrestleMania, whatever it would have been, that is a match that we'll always say, "What if we never got it? What if?" But let's bring it to a bit more of a full circle and a bit more positive, because we know in the future Sting does get back in the ring, like you said, not in a singles match, but he's gone to AEW. He's been arguably Darby Allin's dad for the last couple of years, but at the same time, they've been a team. They've done cinematic matches, they've done actual matches. Sting's now jumping off balconies. I think he's all right. So it looks like Sting's been able to continue on into a late portion of his career, to the point he's even outlasted the Undertaker now. I mean, it's now the Undertaker's the reason we can't have that match, because Sting's still going. I would ask the question then is, has AEW treated and booked Sting in a better capacity than WWE has?
Sting hasn't lost a match in AEW. Since he's been there, all his matches have been tag teams, and he's won every single one. You tell me if AEW have booked him right.
Well, the thing is as well, though, it's who they've booked him against as well. It's not been against like the top. It's not like he's beat Kenny Omega. It's not like he's beat Chris Jericho. It's not like he's beat John Moxley. He's beat people that have been in the feuds with Darby Allin at that time, whether it had been, I think Ricky Starks and Hobbs was the first one. I think there's been other ones that have been in there with I think Malachi Black may or may not have been involved one. Not sure. Andrade Alidolo, I'm sure, has been. There's been lots of different variations of matches, but Sting, like you said, has won a lot of those matches, but they've been team efforts as well, where Darby Allin may pick up the pin and stuff like that. So it's kind of made Sting the attraction, what he was meant to be, how he was supposed to be booked, and how he's then still got that nostalgia and good feel with fans. It's like when you see, I don't want to bring the comparison, it's going to open a whole can of worms here, but you bring Goldberg into WWE and you put him in just championship matches. When Goldberg took on Dolph Ziggler at SummerSlam a couple of years ago, everyone loved it. Everyone loved that. And when it was the Brock Lesnar, the first one back, they loved it because it was an attraction match. The second you're squashing your favorite champions or putting them in champion matches, that's where it all went wrong. And I just think that WWE doesn't learn the lesson with that. And I think that's where something they need to look at and go, this is what we can do better when we get these arguably nostalgic, but also these legend acts in.
Yeah, I mean, because don't get me wrong, at some point in the future, John Cena's not going to be able to do it anymore. So who's your next legend after that? Because at the minute, I can't really think of anyone that's not in WWE anymore that's retired that they can bring back for these one-off matches. Rock, okay, yeah, they're possibly going to line him up. Probably not even going to be for Mania next year. You're probably going to be looking at Mania 43 at this rate, because by the looks of it, it's going to be Cody versus Roman next year. But they don't have anyone else. This is why they're having to bring Austin back. This is why I had to have Austin wrestle at Mania, because they don't have any of these retired legends anymore. These would have been spots ideal for people like Sting. Taker's gone. Austin's probably gone. Rock is too busy. Where if you could have had people like Sting that they could have brought in as an attraction match for Mania. Instead, they had to rely on Goldberg so many times, and everyone got sick of seeing Goldberg. Booker T comes back every once in a blue moon, and the crowd loves it. He's there for that attraction piece. But no, they decided that they wanted to book him on essentially a B-rate pay-per-view against Seth Rollins, who is, like I said, he's a great wrestler, but it's not the match I wanted to see. I wanted to see Sting versus Taker since I started watching wrestling, because it was just always one of those what if matches. And the one opportunity WWE had to do it, and they fluffed it.
Absolutely. It's not the only match they've fluffed over the years. There's plenty of them as well there. But I guess now for attraction, this is why they're going for celebrity. The Logan Pauls, the Bad Bunnies of this world. And probably for free agents, the Homo sapiens out there. Almost is probably in that category now. But, It is
But
what
that's
it
how
is,
bad it is.
unfortunately.
That's what I mean. They're having to rely. They're relying on celebrity matches now. Don't get me wrong. They've pulled off. The Bad Bunny one was fantastic. Logan Paul has been a surprise. But at some point, they're going to find another celebrity. Like, to me personally, I don't think Ronda Rousey's been a big success since she's come in. I think she's under-delivered. She had a great match with Kurt Angle in the first one, in the tag match against Triple H and Stephanie. And I don't think she's done well since. She's been women's champion, but let's face it, the crowd booed her out of the arena because no one liked her. So, do you know what I mean? And it's like you're having to rely on these celebrities come in, and it's like they're not doing anything for you. There's no, do you know what I mean? You've got no one to call on in that 11th hour when you need someone, and they're having to resort to this stuff.
So true. So true. Well, let's go back to...
Sorry, just out of interest, just to say, Sting's opponents in AEW, which he's all won, yeah? Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, Paige and Scorpio, Jeff Parker, Matt Lee, Dax and Wilder, the Guns, the Ascension, Andrade Alito, Isaiah Cassidy and Matt Hardy, Mark Quinn, Butcher and the Blade, Brody King, Buddy Matthews and Malachi Black, Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett, Kip Sabian. Do you know what I mean? All people that Sting should be beating.
Yeah. Those are the people that don't get hurt by it, especially when Sting has someone as well that they're building at the same time. Darby Allin is the future star. They're building along the same side with Sting, so it doesn't take anything away. When Sting is solely the person that's defeating all your future favorites, then it becomes a thing where it's a negative. AEW by far have booked Sting better than Sting has been booked in WWE. There's not even a close debate about it.
But that's what I'm saying. If you'd have had Sting in that same capacity in WWE to build someone up to go up against the likes of a Bray Wyatt, how cool would that have been, man? Yeah. Sting and a prodigy against Bray and Luke Harper or Braun Strowman. Do you know what I mean? It would have been such a cool dynamic. And it would have been exactly what AEW is doing right now. But again, it's just not what Vince was doing at the time.
Absolutely not. Could you just imagine Sting in a Firefly Funhouse match, by the way, going through the bleach blonde hair?
Man. I'm disappointed I can't even get that now because that would be amazing. We saw that when he did the cinematic match at AEW, which was great. It was shot well. Sting was still doing some crazy stuff in it that he really people were really skeptical about because it was his first match back. I think was that cinematic one. But it was fantastic. Yeah, Firefly Funhouse match with Sting and Bray Wyatt all day. I'd eat that up.
Absolutely, and even Joker Sting from TNA could have been used as a reference for that. Would have been fun as well there.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Yeah. I guess it was never to be, unfortunately. But we will go then and just quickly wrap things up on this, and we'll quickly go into our chat as well there. Obviously, just to say very quickly, this match, for those that were interested, was just under 15 minutes, 14 minutes and 52 seconds. Dave Meltzer's given this a 3-star rating. I'm going to give the same, just purely because of the fact that I do think that I enjoyed the match up until the moments where it gets a bit scary. Obviously, had those scary moments not happened, maybe we'd have had a better finish, could have had an even stronger rating. But I can understand from our worried eyesight that this, to a lot of people, cannot be given a high rating. NXTeve, I've got a feeling you're going to be the same.
I'd probably have to go 2.5. I think it was okay. There was nothing memorable about it apart from the stuff that did happen. Do you know what I mean? It was like, apart from the stuff that led to what happened, it was just an okay match, really. Probably could. The quality was on level of what could have been a main event for a Raw or SmackDown for me.
I can understand that indeed there, and obviously that kind of near enough wraps up the show. Obviously, Seth wants to get away, obviously retain the championship, but Sheamus does come out, hits a bro kick, wants to cash in Money in the Bank, just as it looks like he's going to. Kane, the Demon Kane, comes in because we had Corporate Kane for a longest time at this point in WWE. Demon Kane comes out. Apparently, Kane had been destroyed by Brock Lesnar. Seth had kind of been mocking him. That's what I thought I heard on commentary. And obviously, Kane does destroy Seth Rollins, does a chokeslam. Sheamus is like, can you do one more of those, lad? I'm going to cash this in a minute, and I could do doing one more of them. Kane, of course, then chokeslams Sheamus for his troubles, then does a tombstone on Seth Rollins. That then builds up for your next pay-per-view, Hell in a Cell. And just for those that keep in score for it as well, Corporate Kane returns the next night on Raw. Doesn't remember anything here. Almost a schizo Kane going forward there, but Seth Rollins does retain at the next show. But all in all, that is Night of Champions 2015 from top to bottom. And obviously, I can see NXT is glad that we're not doing Hell in a Cell 2014 as a continuation on this video.
Just the fact that you turned around and went Corporate Kane returns the next night, and my brain is sitting there going, why? Why, for the love of God, does he come out chokeslam Seth twice, tombstone him, does Sheamus it. What was the point? What was the point?
It's a schizo character. Demon Kane is at the show at the next pay-per-view, but it's a schizo form of character. And he loses his director of authority or whatever. He was like making a lot of the matches.
I think I've lost the will to live is what I think with that storytelling, because that is absolutely garbage.
Yeah, to be fair, it's not one of my favorite time periods when it comes to wrestling, especially going to the start of 2015. But all in 2016, sorry. But all in all, this is Night of Champions 2015. I've got to say, first half of the show, okay. For me, the second half of the show is a lot more entertaining. It's a shame on the note that it ends, and I think it's how you leave them, unfortunately, is where the rating of this show is going to be. I'm going to say that this show for me is going to be a 6.5 out of 10. This would have been a strong probably 7.5, but 6.5 for me out of 10 is the rating I'm going to give this for the entire show. Something that I think definitely people should go and watch. They should go out of the way to see it, especially the second half of the show. But obviously do be prepared that you may feel uncomfortable for that main event. But NXT, what would be your rating out of 10?
I think I'd have to go 6. I mean, it's good in where it places, it's bad in others, it's terrible in even worse places. Yeah, I'd probably go with a 6. And like I said, it should for the lineup they had. I feel it should have delivered a lot more.
I can understand that indeed there. For those that are watching and enjoying this, especially if you're on delay as well, thank you for watching this stream. Please like the video, share as well, subscribe to SCW as well if you've enjoyed this video. Just before we do wrap things up, there are some comments that have come in, so we're going to go through those comments very quickly. And yeah, then we can wrap things up. But we've got C Nation here saying, if you think about it, Roman Reigns would actually be a double champion carrying 4 belts since he'd have the WWE Universal Unified Tag Team for Raw and SmackDown. That's if he does win a Night of Champions, obviously, this next Saturday, 2023, depending on when you're watching in the future. C Nation, that prediction stream will be on Tuesday, 10 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. Eastern. C Nation goes on to say that in today's generation, Seth Rollins is the best professional wrestler right now. And he also says as well that Seth isn't an unsafe worker. The buckle bomb just isn't a safe move. And I don't remember Seth doesn't really use that move anymore, does he?
He does occasionally, and I think the worst part is he had a match with Finn recently, and he done it to Finn.
That was yeah. And
I'd say, and I think that's what the memory flashbacks of when Finn won the Universal title. And I'm like, maybe not. But yeah, I know he does it on occasion. But yeah, he's not a dangerous worker. It's just that it's unfortunate that he's injured 2 people with the same maneuver. That was the problem.
I think so as well. And obviously, with the broken nose with Cena, just all in that short space of time just didn't help the situation. But of course, Seth just spun them things at that period. Sting should at least lose 1 match in AEW. I would agree when the occasion is correct.
That will be the Darby Allin versus Sting match.
And I reckon that will happen later this year. Absolutely. Probably all in or all out, I will say, for that one. WWE also messed up.
I'm at that one.
Yeah, exactly. Still hoping. WWE also messed up Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. Maybe it's a good thing we didn't get Undertaker versus Sting. They probably would have messed that up too. Here. Can't disagree with that. And also Seth Rollins could have had 3 matches that night.
Just to add to that, I don't think they would have, because I think Taker's got a lot more leeway than what most people have. I don't think that would have been messed up. I think Taker would have pulled all the stops out, and that would have been a killer match.
I think for me, it probably wouldn't have been as good as what it would. I mean, we've had Sting versus Mean Mark Callis in WCW, but that doesn't count because it's not the same characters. It's not, it's not Crow Sting against, the Undertaker. It's not the same thing, obviously. And like you said, the quality may not have been amazing, but would have been what would have fulfilled so many people's dreams over the years.
Story,
of what people want to see.
The story is the attraction in that.
Story would be the attraction. The build of that would have been everything, and it would have made it so much enjoyable. And yes, she goes and say that Seth could have had 3 matches that night. So maybe a thank you to Demon Kane should have come from Seth Rollins, but probably didn't get that. But that's all from us anyway there. Before we leave NXT, I just want to say a big thank you as always. It's been great fun to talk about this show with you.
It always is. Unfortunately, I did go into a bit of a tangent talking about Sting, but obviously it's a case of what if, like we said before. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed this one, and I was glad to be pleasantly surprised by the quality of some of the matches that I thought would be absolute garbage, but actually turned out to be really good.
There you go. And so all in all, I think we're pretty much saying that for some of this show, go your way. Make sure to watch it. For me, it was actually, of all the Night of Champions that we could have gone through, this was the one I really was hoping. Yeah, it was the one I wanted to actually review. So when I saw it do so well in the polls, I got really happy about this. So thank you to everyone that actually voted for this show to come through. And another poll will come through. Obviously, the next one will be Money in the Bank season as well, but going to the UK as well. So I might mix up a little bit. Might do a Money in the Bank or a UK show. Give you a couple of options of what you can vote with and see what we end up with. But all in all, the next show that you'll see us on is going to be Night of Champions 2023.
I'm going to put a suggestion forward for your next poll. I want Pandemic Money in the Bank as one of them, as one of the options, because it's terrible. I want one of them as the options.
For you, Steve, I will do that. It wasn't in there because I've already made my lineup, but I will put that in there for you. I'll take one of the others out and I'm going to put that in just for you. And I know already C Nation is already waiting to vote on that show as soon as it comes.
I want to climb the corporate ladder with you, Steve. I want to climb it.
We may just get a promotion, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have to wait and see how it's going to go. But we want to say thank you to everyone that's been watching this video. It's been a lot of fun to be a part of this. Hope you've all enjoyed it. Look after yourselves and each other. This has been Night of Champions 2015 review. And, well, who knows? Maybe the next time you see us on a retro or a rewind, we could be going back to 2020. We'll have to wait and see. Take care. Look after yourselves and each other. C Nation officially will vote for it. Take care. Good night.